My name is Mitchell, I'm 34, and I never thought I'd be the guy who destroyed his sister's marriage. But when Heather humiliated me with that paternity joke at our parents' anniversary, something inside me snapped. The gender reveal party for her baby seemed like the perfect opportunity for payback. What I didn't anticipate was how my revenge would tear apart her entire life. But let me start from the beginning so you can decide if I went too far. Before I dive in, where are you watching from today? Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever dealt with a toxic sibling. Trust me, this family drama gets intense. Growing up in suburban Chicago with Heather, who's 2 years older than me, wasn't exactly what you'd call peaceful. From as far back as I can remember, our household had a clear hierarchy, Heather at the top, me somewhere below the family dog. I'm not exaggerating when I say my parents showed blatant favoritism. When Heather made the honor roll, my parents took her out for a special dinner. When I made the honor roll with better grades, I got a good job, and nothing else. When Heather needed a car for her 16th birthday, she got a brand new Honda. When my 16th came around, I inherited her old car once she left for college. Christmas? Heather got the latest tech gadgets, while I received practical items like socks and school supplies. These weren't isolated incidents, they formed a pattern throughout our childhood. But the favoritism wasn't even the worst part. Heather had a vindictive streak that surfaced whenever she felt threatened by my successes or happiness. 3 incidents stand out vividly in my memory, each one showing exactly who my sister really was. I was 8 years old when my mom's antique crystal vase, a family heirloom from my grandmother, shattered on the hardwood floor of our living room. I wasn't even in the house when it happened. I was playing basketball with neighborhood kids when Heather, then 10, knocked it over while running through the house. When I came home sweaty from the game, Mom was crying over the broken pieces and Heather was sobbing, pointing at me, claiming she saw me playing with a ball in the house earlier. My protests fell on deaf ears. I lost my allowance for 3 months to pay for the damage, and was grounded for 2 weeks. Years later, when I brought it up, Heather laughed and said, "You were always Mom's favorite anyway. I had to level the playing field somehow." The gaslighting was strong with this one. Then came the science fair incident when I was 12. I'd spent weeks perfecting my project on alternative energy sources, building a working solar panel that could power a small fan. The night before the state fair, after my project had won at the regional level, I found my solar panel smashed and the display board covered in spilled soda. Heather claimed our cat must have knocked it over, despite the fact that the damage was clearly deliberate. Our parents suggested I must have been careless with my project placement. I stayed up all night trying to fix it, but the project was ruined. Heather won 2nd place at state that year for her volcano project, which our parents had helped her build. I didn't even get to compete. The worst came during high school. At 16, I had my first serious girlfriend, Rebecca. Things were going well until rumors started spreading about my sexuality. Someone told Rebecca I was using her as a cover because I was secretly gay. Other rumors suggested I had made crude comments about her body to my friends. None of it was true, but high school being what it is, the damage was done. Rebecca broke up with me, and I became somewhat of a social outcast overnight. It took months to trace the source of the rumors back to Heather, who had started them after I was chosen for a prestigious summer internship that she had also applied for. When confronted, she simply shrugged and said, "High school relationships never last anyway. I did you a favor." My parents' response to all this? "That's just sibling rivalry. You two will grow out of it." They never held Heather accountable, no matter how malicious her actions became. Instead, they often suggested I was too sensitive or that I must have done something to provoke her behavior. So I poured myself into academics, determined to escape my family dynamic. Boston University offered me a partial scholarship, and I jumped at the chance to put 1,000 miles between myself and Heather. Those college years were transformative. For the first time, I could breathe without looking over my shoulder for the next attack. During sophomore year, I met Olivia in a computer science class. She was brilliant, kind, and had this laugh that made everyone around her smile. We became study partners, then friends, then more. Our relationship developed naturally, built on mutual respect and shared interests. After graduation, we both landed jobs in Boston's tech scene. 5 years ago, we got married in a small ceremony with close friends and a few family members. My parents and Heather came, of course, and somehow Heather managed to draw attention to herself by announcing her promotion during our wedding reception toast. My career took off at a respected tech company where I rose to senior software engineer within 3 years. Olivia excelled in UX design, and together we built a comfortable life in Boston. We made a home that felt safe, something I'd never fully experienced growing up. Holiday visits back to Chicago became something we approached with caution. Each Thanksgiving or Christmas inevitably featured some Heather drama. She'd question our career choices, make subtle digs about our decision to wait on having children, or find ways to monopolize our parents' attention. I learned to expect it, even if I never quite became immune to it. 3 years ago, Heather married Connor, a genuinely nice guy who worked as an architectural engineer. I always wondered what he saw in her, but during their early relationship, Heather seemed different. Softer somehow, less competitive. I cautiously hoped marriage might have matured her. Last summer, we all gathered at my parents' lake house for their 40th anniversary. Extended family came from across the country, 30 people in all, including grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins I rarely saw. The first 2 days went surprisingly well. Heather seemed content in her marriage, even pleasant at times. Olivia and I began to relax, thinking maybe, just maybe, we could have a normal family gathering for once. How wrong we were. The anniversary dinner took place on the 3rd night of our family reunion. My parents had rented a large pavilion at the lake, decorated with twinkling lights and photos from their 4 decades together. Everyone dressed up for the occasion, including Heather in a striking red dress that seemed designed to stand out in family photos. What Heather didn't know, what only Olivia and I knew, was that we had been trying for a baby for the past year without success. We'd started preliminary fertility testing, and while nothing conclusive had come back yet, the doctor had mentioned that my sperm count was on the lower end of normal. It was a private struggle, something we weren't ready to share with family as we were still processing it ourselves. That afternoon, Olivia and I had a hushed conversation on the dock about an upcoming fertility specialist appointment. We thought we were alone, but apparently, Heather had been sunbathing nearby, just out of sight. I didn't realize she had overheard until it was too late. The dinner was going beautifully. My dad gave a heartfelt speech about his years with Mom. There wasn't a dry eye at the table, and the prime rib was perfectly cooked. Then came the moment for toasts from the children. I went first, sharing some fond memories and genuine appreciation for my parents, despite our complicated history. Then Heather stood up, champagne flute in hand, with that smile I'd learned to dread since childhood, the one that meant she had ammunition and wasn't afraid to use it. "I'd like to propose a toast not just to Mom and Dad, but also to Mitchell and Olivia," she began, causing confused looks around the table since it wasn't our anniversary. "Because they've been keeping a little secret." My stomach dropped. Olivia grabbed my hand under the table. "They've been trying to have a baby," Heather continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Though with Mitchell's little swimmers being more like sinkers, Olivia might want to look for a donor with stronger genes." She laughed, raising her glass higher. "When the baby finally comes, we'll all have to wonder who really did the job, won't we?" To family secrets. The silence that followed was absolute. 30 pairs of eyes moved between Heather's smug face and our mortified expressions. My grandmother's fork clattered against her plate. My cousin's teenage son whispered, "What does that mean?" only to be shushed by his mother. Olivia's hand trembled in mine. Then she stood, tears streaming down her face, and walked quickly from the table. I sat frozen, my mind blank with shock. By the time I gathered myself enough to respond, the moment had stretched too long, and anything I could say would only draw more attention to the humiliation. My Uncle Gerald finally broke the silence with a forced laugh and a comment about dessert. Conversations resumed in awkward, hushed tones while I excused myself to find Olivia. I found her in our guest room, sobbing on the bed. How could she say that? How did she even know? She kept asking. I had no answers, only the burning shame that my family issues had now hurt the person I loved most. The whispers continued throughout the remainder of the reunion. I caught fragments of conversations. Inappropriate, went too far, fertility problems. Each one cut deep. My parents never addressed Heather's behavior directly. Dad pulled me aside to ask if we were okay, but quickly changed the subject when I tried to discuss what Heather had done. And Heather? She carried on as if nothing had happened, except for the smug smile she wore whenever she caught my eye across the room. That smile said what it always had: I win. The next day, we packed our bags and left early, ignoring my mother's protests about missing the final family brunch. The 4-hour drive back to Chicago to catch our flight was mostly silent, punctuated only by Olivia's occasional sniffles and my useless apologies. Back in Boston, the incident created a new tension in our marriage. Olivia never blamed me directly, but I could see the question in her eyes: how could I let my sister get away with something so cruel? The truth was, I'd been letting Heather get away with cruelty my entire life. It was the path of least resistance in my family. I texted Heather multiple times over the next week. We need to talk about what you said at dinner. That joke wasn't funny. It was cruel. You need to apologize to Olivia. Heather, this is serious. You crossed a line. Her responses were sparse and dismissive when they came at all. The final one read simply: It was just a joke, lighten up. Not my fault if you can't take it. But it wasn't just a joke. It was a deliberate attack using our most private struggle, broadcast to our entire extended family. And unlike the childhood incidents I could eventually leave behind, this one followed us home and into our marriage bed. Something had to change. For the first time in my life, I wasn't willing to let Heather win. For 2 weeks after the reunion, I cycled through anger, shame, and helplessness. Olivia and I had multiple tear-filled conversations about our fertility journey and how Heather's joke had affected us. My wife was remarkably forgiving, reminding me that Heather's behavior reflected on her, not us. Still, I couldn't shake the humiliation or the simmering rage it produced. I met my best friend Ryan for beers after work one Friday, finally sharing the whole sordid story. His reaction was validating in its intensity. Your sister did what? He nearly shouted, causing heads to turn in the bar. Mitch, that's not normal sibling rivalry. That's psychological warfare. I know. I sighed, picking at the label on my beer bottle. But what can I do? She's never faced consequences for anything. You could cut her off, Ryan suggested. You don't need that toxicity in your life. I shook my head. It's not that simple with family. And it would mean limited contact with my parents too. Then confront her directly. Force her to acknowledge what she did. I tried calling Heather the next day, prepared for a difficult but necessary conversation. The call went straight to voicemail. I left a message asking her to call me back about the incident at the anniversary dinner. She never returned the call. A week later, an email from my mother landed in my inbox with the subject line: Exciting family news! Heather was pregnant. The email gushed about becoming grandparents, included several sonogram images, and mentioned a congratulatory dinner the following weekend. The toxic family pattern continued. Heather behaved abominably, faced no consequences, and received celebration instead. Olivia and I debated whether to attend the dinner. In the end, we decided to go, if only to show we wouldn't be driven away from family events. The dinner was predictably uncomfortable. Heather barely acknowledged my presence, focusing instead on my parents' adoration and Connor's obvious excitement about becoming a father. Over dessert, Heather announced plans for an elaborate gender reveal party in 2 months. We're going all out. She beamed. Professional photographer, custom decorations, the works. It's going to be absolutely perfect. The way she emphasized perfect while glancing my way felt like another jab. Perfect family, perfect pregnancy, perfect life. Everything I was struggling with wrapped up in her smug announcement. I congratulated her mechanically and left as soon as politeness allowed. I had no intention of attending another event centered around Heather's ability to conceive when Olivia and I were still visiting fertility specialists with no success. Fate had other plans. 3 weeks later, I was working from a coffee shop near our apartment when someone called my name. I looked up to see Trevor, Connor's best friend from college and the best man at their wedding. We'd met a handful of times at family gatherings and always got along well. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, gesturing to the empty chair at my table. "Taking a break from the office." We chatted casually about work, sports, the usual safe topics. Then Trevor's expression grew serious. "How well do you know your sister these days?" he asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. "About as well as I ever did, which isn't saying much." "Why?" Trevor hesitated. "I'm concerned about Connor. Some things aren't adding up with Heather." "What do you mean?" "I've seen her with another guy several times." Looking very friendly. He cleared his throat. "I mentioned it to Connor once, and he shut me down completely. Said I was misinterpreting things." I immediately went on the defensive. "Heather and I have our issues, but I don't think she'd cheat on Connor. Especially not while pregnant." Trevor shrugged. "Hope you're right. Just thought you should know there's talk." I dismissed the conversation initially. Heather might be vindictive and self-centered, but cheating seemed beyond even her. Besides, pregnancy was supposed to be a joyful time for couples. Surely she wouldn't risk her marriage now. But the seed was planted. Over the next week, I found myself thinking about Trevor's comments more and more. What if there was truth to it? And given the timing of her pregnancy announcement, could there be questions about the baby's paternity? The irony would be almost too perfect. After days of moral debate, I contacted Trevor again, suggesting we meet for drinks. He seemed relieved when I called, as if he'd been waiting to unburden himself. "I've seen them together at least 5 times, he confided once we were seated in a corner booth at a quiet bar. "Always at this restaurant near her office, always looking more than friendly. The guy works with her, some sales director named Marcus." "You're sure it wasn't just business lunches?" I asked. Trevor pulled out his phone and showed me a photo he'd taken. Heather and a tall, dark-haired man were leaving a restaurant, his hand placed intimately on the small of her back. "Business colleagues don't look at each other like that," Trevor said grimly. "And they definitely don't kiss in parking lots." "You saw them kiss?" "Twice. I didn't photograph that because it felt too invasive, but yeah." He put his phone away. "Connor's my best friend. I don't know what to do with this information. Has Connor said anything about the pregnancy seeming sudden?" Trevor shook his head. "He's over the moon about becoming a dad. Hasn't questioned a thing." I left that meeting unsettled. Part of me wanted to ignore what Trevor had shared. Another part, the part still raw from Heather's public humiliation, wanted to know more. That night I did something I'd never done before. I deep-dived into Heather's social media. Her Facebook and Instagram accounts revealed nothing unusual, just the expected pregnancy announcements and nursery preparation photos. But a comment on one photo caught my attention. Someone named MarkyM83 had written, "Our little secret is growing. Can't wait to see you tomorrow." Heather had quickly replied, "Wrong post, Marcus. Talk soon." The comment was deleted shortly after, but not before I'd seen it. Following that lead, I discovered Heather had a secondary, private Instagram account under a slight variation of her name. It wasn't well hidden, just separate from her main account. Through some basic social engineering with a fake account, I gained access. What I found confirmed everything Trevor had suggested and worse. Photos of Heather with Marcus at restaurants, concerts, even weekend getaways dating back over a year. Captions hinted at the depth of their relationship. One particularly damning post from around the time she must have conceived read, "When the right man makes everything complicated in all the right ways." The final confirmation came unexpectedly. Heather accidentally sent a text meant for Marcus to our family group chat, then quickly deleted it. Fortunately, I saw the notification preview and took a screenshot before she could remove it. The text read, Doctor says 10 to 12 weeks now. Timeline could work for either scenario. Need to talk before the reveal. This is getting complicated. I stared at that screenshot for a long time, the irony of the situation not lost on me. Heather had publicly humiliated me with a paternity joke while privately facing actual paternity questions about her own baby. The gender reveal invitation arrived in my email the next day, featuring a cartoon stork and the question, "What will baby Williams be?" I looked at the invitation, then back at the screenshot on my phone, and made my decision. Heather's gender reveal was planned with the same competitive perfectionism she applied to everything. My parents' spacious backyard was transformed with an elaborate blue and pink themed decoration scheme. A professional event company had set up a tent with twinkling lights, a stage area for the big reveal, and activity stations including a prediction board, old wives' tales tests, and a custom photo booth with props. The invitation list included over 50 people, ranging from immediate family to extended relatives, friends, and even coworkers. I noted with interest that Marcus from marketing was listed among Heather's work colleagues attending. Olivia was reluctant to go after the anniversary dinner incident. "Are you sure we need to put ourselves through another Heather event?" she asked as we got dressed that morning. "I think it's important we show up," I replied, carefully selecting a navy blue button-down shirt. "For Connor, if nothing else." "You've been different since meeting Trevor for drinks," Olivia observed. "Is there something you're not telling me?" I hesitated but decided against sharing my discoveries. "Just processing some things. I'll explain later, I promise." We arrived at my parents' house to find the party already in full swing. Cars lined the suburban street, and the sound of upbeat music drifted from the backyard. Heather greeted us at the gate with a tight smile, her hand protectively cradling her small baby bump beneath a white maternity dress with both pink and blue accessories. "So glad you could make it," she said with the practiced warmth of a hostess rather than a sister. Her eyes flickered to Olivia's stomach briefly, a subtle reminder of our fertility struggles, before she moved on to welcome the guests behind us. Connor approached us moments later, his face glowing with excitement. "Mitch, Olivia! Thanks for coming." He hugged us both warmly. "Can you believe I'm going to be a dad?" Best feeling in the world. Guilt twisted in my stomach as I looked at my brother-in-law's genuine joy. Did he deserve to have his world shattered so publicly? But then, had Olivia deserved to be humiliated at our family reunion? I scanned the crowd and quickly spotted Marcus, Heather's co-worker and apparent lover. He stood awkwardly by the drinks table, handsome in that generic sales director way with his perfect teeth and carefully styled hair. He watched Heather with an intensity that should have been obvious to anyone paying attention. Throughout the afternoon, I observed Heather's practice performance. She played the radiant mother-to-be while carefully managing the physical distance between herself and Marcus. Occasionally, their eyes would meet across the yard, and she would quickly look away. Twice, I noticed them having brief, tense conversations in semi-private corners before separating when others approached. My parents bustled around, proudly showing off the ultrasound photos and telling anyone who would listen about their nursery plans for grandparent visits. Not once did they mention the anniversary dinner incident, or check how Olivia and I were doing with our own parenthood journey. Midway through the party, Connor gathered everyone for a speech. He stood on the small stage, microphone in hand, eyes shining with unshed tears of happiness. "I just want to thank everyone for coming today to celebrate our little miracle," he began. "When Heather told me we were expecting, it was the happiest moment of my life, even better than our wedding day." The crowd chuckled appreciatively. "I already love this child so much, boy or girl, and I promise to be the best father I can possibly be." As the guests applauded, I watched Heather's face. For a split second, her mask slipped, and I saw something that looked remarkably like guilt in her eyes as she glanced between Connor and Marcus. My resolve wavered. Was I really going to do this? Destroy her marriage, her reputation, her perfect life? When the applause died down, Heather made her way to me, that familiar calculated smile on her face. "Enjoying the party, little brother?" she asked, voice honeyed but eyes cold. "It's quite the production," I replied neutrally. "You always did know how to be the center of attention. Some of us just naturally shine." She sipped her sparkling water. "How are things with you and Olivia? Any luck with your situation?" There it was, another deliberate dig at our fertility struggles. Any doubts I had evaporated with that smirk. "We're doing great, actually," I lied smoothly. "Thanks for your concern." As Heather moved on to other guests, I noticed her stop briefly beside Marcus near the house. Though I couldn't hear their words, the tension in their postures was unmistakable. Marcus's mouth formed what looked like, "Tell him," before Heather shook her head sharply and walked away. The master of ceremonies, a friend of Heather's from college, announced that the gender reveal would happen in 30 minutes. The technical setup was already in place, a professional projector and sound system for the elaborate video reveal Heather had planned, culminating in the release of colored smoke from a decorative box on stage. "Do you need any help with the technical setup?" I offered innocently to the event coordinator, a harried-looking woman checking connections on the laptop. "Actually, yes," she said gratefully. "I need to help with the smoke machine calibration. Can you make sure this presentation is ready to go? Just click this file when we give you the signal." She pointed to a video file labeled babywilliams_reveal.mp4 on the desktop. "No problem," I assured her. "I'm in tech, remember? I've got this covered." As soon as she left, I pulled the thumb drive from my pocket and inserted it into the laptop. The drive contained a carefully edited presentation of my own evidence of Heather's affair, screenshots of messages, the photos from her private account, and most damning of all, the text about paternity concerns. I copied my file to the desktop and renamed it to match Heather's original file, moving her actual reveal video to a subfolder. My heart pounded as I completed these actions. Was I really going through with this? I glanced up to see Heather laughing with my parents, Connor's arm proudly around her waist, while across the yard, Marcus watched them with poorly disguised longing and anxiety. Yes, I decided. I was really going through with it. The sister who had tormented me throughout childhood, who had publicly humiliated me and my wife about our most private struggle, who was now deceiving her husband about something as fundamental as the paternity of their child, she would finally face consequences for her actions. I closed the laptop, signaled to the coordinator that everything was ready, and rejoined Olivia in the crowd, the weight of what I was about to do heavy on my shoulders. "Ladies and gentlemen," the master of ceremonies' voice boomed through the speakers. "The moment we've all been waiting for has arrived. Please gather around the stage for the big reveal." The crowd of 50-plus guests migrated to the seating area in front of the stage. Excitement buzzed through the air as people placed final bets on the prediction board. Blue had a slight lead over Pink in the guest guesses. Heather and Connor took their places center stage, both beaming with anticipation. She wore a careful mask of happiness, though I'd caught her exchanging tense glances with Marcus several times in the past half hour. Connor looked genuinely ecstatic, one arm around his wife, the other hand resting gently on her baby bump. My father stepped up to the microphone first. "Before we reveal whether our first grandchild is a boy or a girl, Judy and I just want to say how blessed we feel today." His voice cracked with emotion. "Seeing our daughter starting her own family is everything we've dreamed of." No mention of his son, of course, or our struggles to conceive. Some things never changed. My mother joined him, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "We are so proud of Heather and Connor. They're going to be wonderful parents." I stood at the back of the crowd beside the tech table, finger hovering over the laptop's keyboard. Olivia had found us seats in the second row, looking back at me with confusion when I didn't join her. I gave her a small wave, pointing to the laptop to indicate I was helping with the technical aspects. The MC took over again. "All right, everyone, let's count down to the big reveal. Heather and Connor have prepared a special video journey of their pregnancy so far, ending with the gender of their little one. The crowd joined in enthusiastically. 10, 9, 8. Heather and Connor held hands on stage, her smile tight around the edges while his was unrestrained. 7, 6, 5. I saw Marcus near the edge of the seating area, fidgeting nervously with his watch. 4, 3. My parents stood proudly to the side of the stage, arms around each other. 2, 1. I pressed enter, and my presentation began to play on the large screen behind Heather and Connor. The opening slide read, "The Real Baby Williams Story." Confused murmurs rippled through the audience as the first screenshot appeared, a private message from Heather to Marcus. Last night was amazing. Connor's business trip means 3 whole days of just us. Heather's head snapped toward the screen, her expression transforming from confusion to horror in an instant. What? Stop the video. That's not our reveal, she shrieked, but her voice only drew more attention to the unfolding disaster. The next slide showed a photo of Heather and Marcus kissing in a restaurant booth, followed by another of them entering a hotel. Each image was timestamped, showing dates throughout the past year. Connor stood frozen, his face a mask of confusion gradually giving way to comprehension. Heather? His voice cracked on her name. What is this? But the presentation continued relentlessly. A screenshot of a text conversation appeared next. Marcus, are you sure about the baby? Timing works out for me too. Heather, don't know yet. Getting blood tests next week. Marcus, if it's mine, we need to tell him. Heather, let me handle it. Need to be careful. The crowd gasped collectively. Someone whispered loudly, "Oh my God!" while others sat in stunned silence. My mother let out a small cry of distress, grabbing my father's arm for support. Heather lunged toward the tech table, screaming, "Turn it off! This is all lies!" But her reaction only confirmed the truth of what everyone was seeing. Connor grabbed her arm, stopping her mid-stride. "Is it true?" he demanded, his voice breaking. "Is the baby even mine?" More messages appeared on screen, each more damning than the last. The final slide showed the text Heather had accidentally sent to our family group chat. Doctor says 10 to 12 weeks now. Timeline could work for either scenario. Need to talk before the reveal. This is getting complicated. Chaos erupted. Heather broke free from Connor and rushed toward the laptop, but it was too late. Everyone had seen everything. "You fucking asshole!" she screamed at me, mascara running down her cheeks. "You did this! You ruined everything!" Connor stood on stage, visibly shaking. "All this time," he said loud enough for those nearby to hear. "While I was picking out baby names, building a nursery, you were with him?" He pointed at Marcus, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. Marcus tried to slip away, but Connor's friend Trevor blocked his path. "You're not going anywhere," Trevor said grimly. Heather turned back to Connor, reaching for him desperately. "Connor, please, I can explain. It's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like." Connor's laugh was hollow. "It looks like you've been cheating on me with your coworker and now you're pregnant, possibly with his child." His voice rose as the full impact hit him. "Was anything real? Did you ever actually love me at all?" My parents rushed forward, my mother trying to calm the situation while my father turned off the projector, too late to prevent the damage. "Heather, honey, what's going on?" my mother asked, as if there could be some innocent explanation for what everyone had just witnessed. Connor backed away from all of them, his face a mask of pain. "Don't come home tonight," he told Heather, his voice ice cold. "Or any night. We're done." He pushed through the crowd, ignoring the sympathetic hands reaching out to him, and disappeared into the house. Heather collapsed to her knees on stage, sobbing uncontrollably now, all pretense abandoned. "Mitchell!" she screamed, finding me in the crowd. "How could you do this to me?" The forgotten gender reveal box sat on a table nearby, its secret still contained inside, now irrelevant amidst the destruction of a marriage. As guests began awkwardly gathering their belongings and leaving, I felt a hand on my arm. It was Olivia, her expression a complicated mix of shock, anger, and something else I couldn't quite identify. "We need to leave," she said quietly. "Now." As we walked away, I heard my mother calling my name, but I didn't turn back. What was done was done. Heather had finally faced consequences for her actions, and I had been the one to ensure it. The drive home was thick with tension. Olivia gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white, and for 15 minutes, neither of us spoke. I watched the suburban landscape blur past, my emotions cycling between vindication, guilt, and a strange emptiness where I'd expected satisfaction. Finally, Olivia broke the silence. "Was it worth it?" The question hung between us, deceptively simple yet impossible to answer cleanly. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me feels she deserved it after what she did to us at the reunion. The other part—" I trailed off, picturing Connor's devastated face. "The other part knows you just did to her exactly what she's been doing to you your whole life," Olivia finished softly. "You became her." Her words hit me like a physical blow. Had I? The thought was unbearable. "She was cheating on Connor," I defended. "He deserved to know the truth." "Yes, but did he deserve to find out that way? In front of everyone they know?" Olivia shook her head. "There were other ways, Mitch. She was right, of course. I could have told Connor privately. I could have confronted Heather and given her the chance to come clean. Instead, I'd chosen the most destructive, most public method possible. I'd wanted her to hurt the way she'd made us hurt. By the time we reached our apartment, my phone was exploding with notifications. Text messages from family members ranged from horrified condemnation to reluctant support. From Cousin Beth. "OMG Mitch, that was brutal but also kind of epic. Heather had it coming after all these years." From Uncle Gerald. "Not sure what's going on between you two, but there are lines you don't cross in family." Disappointed. From my father. "Call us immediately. Your mother is distraught. How could you embarrass the family like this?" I turned off my phone, unable to deal with the fallout just yet. Barely an hour after we got home, my parents called our landline. I almost didn't answer, but Olivia encouraged me to face the music. My mother was crying so hard I could barely understand her, while my father's voice shook with barely controlled rage. "What the hell were you thinking?" he demanded. "Your sister is devastated. Her marriage is in tatters. Was that your goal? Did you ever once call to ask if Olivia and I were okay after Heather humiliated us at your anniversary dinner?" I countered, anger rising to meet his. "Did you even acknowledge what she did?" "That was a tasteless joke," my father dismissed. "This was malicious destruction of your sister's life. It wasn't just a joke, Dad. She deliberately humiliated us about our fertility struggles in front of the entire family. And now she's facing consequences for her own actions, not mine. I didn't make her cheat on Connor. She's saying those messages were taken out of context." My mother interjected, sniffling. "That you manipulated things to look worse than they are." Of course she was. Heather never took responsibility. "The photos of her kissing Marcus were manipulated too, I suppose?" I asked dryly. "She's pregnant and devastated," my father said, ignoring my point entirely. "She's staying with us now. Connor won't even speak to her." "I'm sorry for Connor," I said, and meant it. "He deserves better. You need to apologize to your sister," my father insisted. "Come over tomorrow and help us fix this mess." "No," I said firmly. "I won't be doing that." After we hung up, Olivia and I talked late into the night, processing everything that had happened and what it meant for our family relationships moving forward. I explained the full extent of what I'd discovered about Heather's affair and the potential paternity issue. While Olivia understood my motivation, she remained troubled by my methods. "An eye for an eye leaves everyone blind," she reminded me gently. The next morning, my best friend Ryan came over with coffee and bagels, having heard about the gender reveal drama through mutual acquaintances. So you actually did it, he said, somewhere between impressed and concerned. Nuclear option. I didn't fully think through the collateral damage, I admitted. Connor's a good guy. He didn't deserve to find out like that. True, Ryan nodded. But would he have believed it otherwise? Sometimes the Band-Aid needs to be ripped off. Heather's been getting away with toxic behavior forever, right? Maybe this needed to happen. For the next week, I avoided family calls while rumors and details of the gender reveal showdown spread through extended family and friend circles. Mayan texted that the incident had divided the family, with some saying I'd gone too far and others admitting Heather had always been troublesome. Then came Heather's text sent at 3 a.m. You think you've won? You have no idea what you've done. I'll make you regret this for the rest of your life. You and your barren wife both. I blocked her number after that, but the message lingered in my mind. I'd seen Heather's capacity for revenge firsthand throughout our lives. What would she do now that I'd publicly humiliated her? The answer to that question was delayed by an unexpected development. Connor showed up at our door 10 days after the gender reveal, looking haggard and sleep-deprived. Can I crash here for a few days? He asked, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. I've been at a hotel, but I need to figure things out, and I can't go to any of our mutual friends without 20 questions. I invited him in, surprised but willing to help. You're welcome here as long as you need. Over beers that night, Connor opened up about the state of his marriage before the reveal. Things weren't perfect, he admitted. Heather could be difficult, controlling. But I never suspected she was cheating, not for a second. He took a long drink. The pregnancy made everything seem better. I thought we were starting a new chapter. I'm sorry you found out the way you did, I said sincerely. That wasn't fair to you. Connor shrugged. Maybe there's no good way to learn your wife's been sleeping with her coworker and might be pregnant with his kid. He looked at me directly. Why did you do it like that, Mitch? You could have told me privately. I owed him honesty. It was revenge for what she did to Olivia and me at my parents' anniversary. She humiliated us about our fertility struggles in front of everyone. Connor nodded slowly. She mentioned something about a joke that you overreacted to. He sighed. I should have known there was more to it. Heather always leaves out the parts that make her look bad. That's putting it mildly. I agreed. The crazy thing is, Connor said, staring at his beer bottle, part of me still loves her. How messed up is that? I had no answer for him. Love and family both complicated everything. Connor stayed with us for nearly 2 weeks, using our guest room as a base while he consulted with a divorce attorney and arranged for a friend to collect his essential belongings from the house he'd shared with Heather. Despite the circumstances, I found myself developing a genuine friendship with him, separate from his connection to my sister. I've demanded a paternity test, he told me one evening. If the baby is mine, I'll co-parent, of course. But I can't stay married to her. Not after this. In a strange way, my revenge had given Connor clarity about his marriage that might have taken years to achieve otherwise. But it had also robbed him of what he believed was a perfect future with the woman he loved and their child. The full scope of what I'd done was still unfolding, rippling outward in ways I never could have anticipated. 1 month after the gender reveal disaster, the dust had begun to settle enough to assess the damage. Connor had moved into his own apartment and filed for divorce. The paternity test results had come back, confirming what the messages had suggested. Marcus was indeed the biological father of Heather's baby. My family remained divided. My parents still barely spoke to me, though my mother had started sending brief text updates about general family matters, carefully avoiding any mention of Heather. Several aunts, uncles, and cousins had reached out to me privately, some to criticize my actions, others to confess they'd always found Heather difficult and thought she'd finally faced necessary consequences. Heather had lost her job due to company policies against relationships between managers and direct reports. Marcus, it turned out, had reported to her, adding a power dynamic to their affair that his girlfriend discovered and reported to HR after the gender reveal revelations. The scandal had spread through their professional network, making job hunting difficult for both of them. I hadn't spoken to Heather directly since that day, though I'd heard through family that she and Marcus were now openly together, attempting to build a relationship under the strange circumstances. According to my mother, they were trying to make the best of a difficult situation for the baby's sake. Meanwhile, life had taken an unexpected turn for Olivia and me. After nearly a year of fertility treatments and disappointments, Olivia had discovered she was pregnant just 2 weeks after the gender reveal party. The timing created a strange parallel between our situations and Heather's that wasn't lost on either of us. "Do you think it's karma?" Olivia asked as we stared at the positive pregnancy test in disbelief. "I think it's biology finally cooperating," I replied, though part of me wondered about cosmic ironies. We kept the news private initially, sharing it only with our closest friends. After what had happened with Heather, making pregnancy announcements felt complicated and fraught. 3 months after the gender reveal, I received a text from an unknown number. "Coffee. Tomorrow. 2 p.m., neutral ground. Marshall's on 5th. We need to talk." It could only be Heather. I debated ignoring it, but Olivia encouraged me to go. "This has to be resolved sometime," she reasoned. "Better sooner than later." Marshall's coffee was busy enough to ensure our conversation would remain relatively private without being truly isolated. I arrived early, selecting a table in the corner with clear sightlines to the exits, a habit from childhood when confrontations with Heather often went sideways. She arrived precisely at 2, her baby bump now prominently visible beneath a loose blouse. Her face was thinner than I remembered, the customary perfect makeup replaced by a more natural look that showed the dark circles under her eyes. "You came," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Not a question, not quite a greeting. "I did," I confirmed neutrally. A barista approached, and we both ordered drinks in a strange pantomime of normalcy. Once we were alone again, Heather didn't waste time. "You ruined my life," she stated flatly. "You ruined your own life," I countered. "I just exposed the truth. In the cruelest way possible," she hissed, leaning forward. "You could have told Connor privately. You could have confronted me first. Instead, you humiliated me in front of everyone I know. Like you humiliated Olivia and me at the anniversary dinner?" I asked quietly. Her expression flickered. "That was a joke." "No, it wasn't. It was deliberate cruelty using our most private struggle as ammunition." "It wasn't the same thing," she insisted, but with less conviction. "It was exactly the same thing. The only difference is that what I revealed was true." We sat in tense silence as the barista delivered our drinks. Heather wrapped her hands around her decaf latte, staring into it rather than meeting my eyes. "I lost everything," she finally said, voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "My marriage, my job, my reputation. Do you have any idea what it's like to have everyone whispering about you, judging you?" "Actually, I do," I replied evenly. "After your joke, our entire extended family was gossiping about our fertility issues. The difference is you chose to cheat on your husband. Olivia and I didn't choose our medical challenges." Heather's composure cracked then, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I know," she whispered. "I know what I did was wrong. All of it. The affair, the joke, everything." The admission shocked me into silence. In 34 years, I'd never heard Heather acknowledge doing anything wrong. "Why?" I finally asked. "Why have you always needed to hurt me? Since we were kids, you've gone out of your way to cause me pain. What did I ever do to you?" She wiped her tears with a napkin. "You were always better than me," she said so quietly I had to lean in to hear. "Smarter, kinder, more genuine. Mom and Dad might have given me more stuff, more attention, but everyone actually liked you. Teachers, relatives, friends. They respected you. I was just a pretty, popular girl with nothing substantial underneath." I stared at her, unable to reconcile this perspective with my childhood experience. "That's not how it felt from my side." "I know that now," she acknowledged. Therapy twice a week will give you some insights. She attempted a weak smile. Turns out I'm a textbook case of insecurity and narcissistic tendencies. We talked for nearly 3 hours, unpacking decades of misunderstandings, hurt, and toxic patterns. It wasn't a reconciliation, not really, but it was the first honest conversation we'd ever had. She explained her relationship with Connor had been troubled from the beginning, with her constantly seeking validation outside the marriage. The affair with Marcus had started as another ego boost but developed into something more complicated. I was going to tell Connor after the gender reveal, she claimed. That's what Marcus and I were arguing about at the party. He wanted me to come clean. I didn't entirely believe her, but I recognized the olive branch for what it was. As we prepared to leave, Heather asked hesitantly, Do you think we'll ever have a normal sibling relationship? I don't know, I answered honestly. Too much has happened. But maybe we can build something new. Something healthier. She nodded, accepting this limited hope. In the months that followed, I began therapy myself, working through the childhood dynamics that had shaped me and my reactions. The revenge that had seemed so satisfying in the planning had left me feeling hollow in execution. Yes, Heather had faced consequences for her actions, but exposing her so publicly had changed me in ways I was still processing. 6 months after the gender reveal party, my parents hosted a subdued family dinner. Heather came with Marcus, their relationship now official though still obviously strained. She had given birth to a daughter, Sophia, just 2 weeks earlier. Connor had moved to Seattle for a fresh start, maintaining minimal contact with the family. Olivia was showing prominently by then, our son due in 3 months. The parallel pregnancies created an awkward symmetry that everyone politely pretended not to notice. The dinner was tense but civil. My parents tried too hard to pretend everything was normal, but at least they acknowledged both pregnancies equally. Heather was different, subdued, less performative. When she asked about our nursery plans, the question seemed genuinely interested rather than competitive. After dinner, she approached me on the patio, baby Sophia sleeping against her shoulder. I'm trying to be better, she said simply. For her. I believe you, I replied, and was surprised to realize I meant it. Would you and Olivia want to be in Sophia's life? She asked tentatively. She should know her uncle and aunt. Her cousin too, when he arrives. It was a peace offering, imperfect but sincere. We'd like that, I said after a moment. Family is complicated, but it's still family. As I look back now, with our son Jack nearly 6 months old and regular, carefully boundaried visits with Heather and Sophia part of our routine, I still don't have a simple answer about whether my revenge was justified. Heather's cruel joke at the anniversary dinner was wrong, but my public exposure of her affair had consequences far beyond what I'd anticipated. What I do know is this: revenge doesn't heal the original wound. It might feel satisfying in the moment, but it doesn't erase the hurt that drove you to seek it. True healing comes from breaking cycles, not perpetuating them. Heather and I will never have a perfect sibling relationship. Too much water under too many bridges for that. But we're building something new from the ashes of our toxic past, something that might, with work and boundaries, be healthy for the next generation. If you've stayed with my story this long, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever taken revenge that went further than you expected? Did it give you the closure you hoped for? Drop a comment below with your experience. And if this tale of family drama resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps me continue sharing these complicated life experiences. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't getting even, but moving forward.